his guilt is screaming at you, Mike.
Yeah, Bill, that's the thing. In hindsight, when we we see things with 2020 vision. So after you realize what has been going on, and then you go back and you look at the interviews that she'd given, that Jen had given to the newspaper reporter and news reporter, and he's in the background, doing things, hovering around, cracking his knuckles, whatever. And then he's interviewed, and he's got the tears, and he's mumbling and crying. We see it in hindsight as, oh my God, that's a sign. But while it's happening, the police, they've got a missing girl. So maybe, and they're listening to what the people are saying, maybe not so much as how they're saying it, but they're looking for tidbits of information, times, dates, location, who would she be with? Has she ever done this before? All those little tidbits of information. They're looking for the survival of that girl, get her back as quick as they can. And they're not actually at that time, perhaps, thinking so much about which one of these two people may have done it. Hours later, when they start to check out stories, then they start to review everything they know, and they'd start to see those sorts of little signs in the background. But in the beginning, it's Maddie's survival and getting information as quickly as they can to find her. That's what they're concentrating on.
Absolutely. JPL, Jay the Stelladoro. It seems like so many people had like a little heads up of what was going on with Stefan Stearns, but nobody did a thing to help this child. JPL, Jay the Stelladoro, unfortunately, that's the way it is in a lot of these cases. People turn a blind eye. People don't want to get involved. I was amazed with this case that the school saw no signs of it because it had been going on for about 3 years. And the school saw no signs of it. And I'm not blaming them, but I would imagine they're professionals. Someone in the school would have noted something or saw something that they found really bizarre with Madeline Soto's behavior. But there was never a report from the school. And, we talk about gatekeepers in this world. And gatekeepers are people that, by law, have a duty to report things. And if they don't, they can be charged with a misdemeanor. Some of those gatekeepers, obviously police, firemen, nurses, doctors, school teachers, guidance counselors, psychiatrists, psychologists, anyone who comes in contact, that's a professional that comes in contact with children. They are required, and we call them gatekeepers. They're required to report it. And no one reported this at all. And again, I can't tell people what they saw or didn't see or indict someone for not seeing something, but it's a little bit strange to me that no one saw behavior that indicated something was very wrong with Madeline Soto. Mike?
Yeah, unfortunately, with all the mandated reporters we have, and you could see it on any website, you go to like mandated reporters Florida, mandated reporters New York, and there's a list of like 25 categories of people who are mandated reporters for child abuse and neglect. And unfortunately, it could be that people think about things and they're not really sure what a sign may be because they don't see it maybe as a sign. It may be suspicious, whatever. And they don't want to actually report anything because they don't want, if they're afraid maybe to report something that they think that has happened, but if it's false, they're going to be accused. People are going to be angry at them. There's a recent case in Connecticut with a gentleman who was found in his home, emaciated. He was locked up in his home for 20 years. And there had been several reports made to the police. And somewhere along the line, the case fell through the cracks. And so that's a hard thing because you have all these people that are mandated and you think children are safer because of that there's so many eyes looking out for these children. And then you realize, no, you can mandate whatever you want, but what happens in reality is a totally different thing. And so sadly, people may have had some thoughts about what was going on with Madeline at home, but they never thought about it enough to come forward and actually make a report. And that's sad.
For sure. Kelcher Cambridge from the chat. Stern doesn't want cameras in the court, but he was using his camera and his phone to videotape. Kelcher, you're 100% right. Isn't that sort of an irony here? That, oh, by the way, the judge ruled that cameras can be in the courtroom and that the courtroom will be open during this trial. So that motion by the defense was already denied by the judge, which I think is great because you're right. The irony that this guy, what he did, and I won't spell it out because YouTube doesn't like that, but he didn't want a light shown on him. You know, what do they say? To keep the truth, shine a spotlight on it, right? And that's maybe what the public is demanding in this case. We want a spotlight shown on this horrible incidents, you know. And again, I must say this: Stefan Stearns is presumed innocent till proven guilty, but the state is getting 2 shots at him. One on May 5th for the SA case, and one on September 22nd for the murder. So it's difficult with all of this this evidence. Tamika Riley, I just want to put up your comments on the screen. Tamika Riley, I'm a mandated reporter, and it's hard and no protection for you if you're not comfortable or strong. I understand why people wouldn't report. Tamika, I understand too. I really do. I'm not trying to say that it's simple. That's you put yourself out there when you do it. And I'm sure people report things that turn out to be wrong, but they're not supposed to be penalized for that. That you gave a good, honest, your integrity to report something that you thought was wrong. And if there wasn't there should be no, you can't be, I don't think you can be sued. I'll put it that way. Mike?
Yeah, Billy, if you are, not doing something maliciously to try to, libel someone to death, defame them in any sort of way, shape, or form, if you have any sort of reasonable grounds to believe that what you're saying is true, I don't think that you'd be held liable. The problem is, just because you may not be held liable at the end doesn't mean someone cannot make your life hell by having you hire your own attorney and defend yourself. You would hope that whatever agency you work for as a teacher or as a doctor, nurse, social worker, that you would be backed up and represented and indemnified by your, by your organization, be it a city, county, state, whatever. But they could possibly make your life hell for a while. But it is difficult because I look at what we go through in New York City. You have so many cases, and the child welfare people, they're understaffed. They don't have any sort of police power. If a person doesn't cooperate with them, they cannot, they're not like detectives, and they can bring them in for investigation and arrest them for obstructing governmental administration. They don't have enough real power to do what they really need to do. It's sad. They're underfunded and understaffed.
Mike, one thing that I always remember from the NYPD patrol guide, if I remembered anything, was that no child removed by the NYPD for something like this, a case like this, will ever be returned to that family by any member of this department.